Nice sandwich.
Hi. This is a taco.
I guess. And this is First Stop News. Reading is it. So of course we ask you all what books you think we should be reading this summer. Here's what we got.
My first one is Dragon Kingdom of Renly. I like this one because there's a lot of dragons and it's action-packed and fun. The next one is Trapped in a Video Game Series. This is a chapter book, and I like this book series because I like video games and virtual reality.
This summer, I think you guys should read the book Wonder. It's all about a boy named August, and his face looks different than others. He shows everyone and himself that it matters what's in the inside instead of the outside.
My favorite book, personally, is The Babysitter's Club. Marianne Saves the Day. I like this book because when the babysitters get into a huge fight, Marianne is left to her own devices. She became from nervous to self-confident. It reminded me of many experiences I had throughout my life. I also like this book because she made a new friend and a new crew member of the Babysitter's Club.
And the book I recommend to read over the summer is Amulet by Kazu Kibuishi. Just trust me, you're gonna love it.
We also have some pretty good suggestions from a cool California bookshop, which we're going to tell you all about. But first, our question of the day is something to chew on. What makes a sandwich a sandwich? It's a serious question. Is it just meat between two pieces of bread? Or is it something more than that?
You see, people love to try to define the true identity of this handheld meal. Do you think a hot dog is a sandwich?
No, I think a hot dog is a hot dog. Hence why we call it a hot dog.
Okay, I think it's a sandwich.
Here we go.
Here we go. But now, another menu item has entered the chat and broadened the debate.
We'll explain why later, but first, you have to decide. Is a taco a sandwich? Yes or no? Think about it while we tell you about this next story.
There's a lot going on around the world, and we're starting with Iran. A helicopter carrying the country's president and several others crashed earlier this week, and unfortunately, there were no survivors. The president was returning from an official event when his helicopter crashed over an area full of mountains.
Also on board the helicopter was Iran's foreign minister. It's been reported that the cause was technical failure, but there was also an intense fog in the area, and extreme weather made it hard for first responders to find the wreckage.
Iran is a theocracy, which is a type of government, and it means a country's political leader is also its religious leader, known as the supreme leader. The president is the second highest ranking official in Iran.
The supreme leader has declared 5 days of national mourning, and a public funeral was held on Tuesday. The U.S. offered its condolences, but doesn't believe this will change its relationship with Iran. The ultra-conservative president was a violent leader within the country.
Some of the worst human rights abuses occurred during his tenure as president, especially the human rights abuses against the women and girls of Iran. We will continue to support the people of Iran to defend their human rights.
The first vice president has been named as interim president. He will act as president for 50 days until the mandatory presidential elections in July.
Now let's go to India, which is in the midst of the world's largest election, where about 1 billion people are eligible to vote.
India's current prime minister is looking for a very rare third consecutive win. He's already been in power for 10 years.
In India, the prime minister is selected by the party that has control of parliament. So, if Prime Minister Modi's party wins the most seats, it's expected he'll stay in the role.
Modi's supporters believe he's helped raise India's significance in the world, but his critics say he's not supportive of religious diversity within the country, which is also dealing with the rise of unemployment and inflation.
Different than other democratic countries, voting occurs on 7 different days spread out over 6 weeks. It gives all voters throughout the country an opportunity to vote, like this family who has their own polling station. It also allows for security and safety to be set up.
Voter turnout has not been as strong as past elections. They've also faced violence at some polling stations and this week's extreme heat.
Voting began April 19th and ends on June 1st. Votes will be counted on June 4th.
Wild spring storms are still causing a lot of trouble across parts of the Midwest. Several tornadoes and severe storms ripped through a handful of states, with Iowa hit the hardest. Unfortunately, multiple people were killed and some were injured, and many homes were damaged.
Iowa had at least 17 tornado reports on Tuesday. And between Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota, over 80,000 people were without power, but some has now been restored. And cleanup is underway.
Meanwhile, in Texas, thousands are still in the dark after something called a derecho swept through the state last week. A derecho brings strong winds and severe thunderstorms. They think it could take weeks for some power to come back there.
Red Cross disaster teams have set up emergency shelters and brought relief as record heat is expected to move into the area. As always, we hope everybody stays safe.
Did you catch this video? We had to know what was going on here. So we reached out to the woman behind the mask to find out. It turns out this wildlife center treats sick, injured, or orphan wildlife. And the reason behind this furry disguise was to care for a baby fox.
We've never worn masks for mammals like this fox, but we decided it was important in this case for this particular fox. So this is the mask that we use to feed our foxes. Wearing the mask is important because we didn't want the baby fox to imprint on us, or any animal that is young to associate who they are with their caretaker. When she came in, she was a neonate. She had just been born. She may have only been a few hours old. Foxes start to open their eyes around day 14, but the corners of her eyes had started to unseal. And so we were concerned that we might be in the process of feeding her and she might open her eyes. We didn't want the first thing for her to see in the world to be a human, and having that connection be reinforced with food. It's important that particularly animals that are predatory in nature, we encourage them to recognize who they are and their own species. We don't want them to associate people with food or as a mate or a place of comfort. We want them to be afraid of people. When we release them into the wild, to recognize others of their own kind so that they can find mates and they can integrate and continue with their populations.
Summer is right around the corner, which means our birthdays are coming up, but it also means the days of lazily reading by the pool, at the beach, or at home are here.
But mostly, our birthdays.
Duh.
We stopped by Zibby's Bookshop in Santa Monica, California to get some summer reading recs from author Katrina Lino.
My first recommendation for you is Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library. If you like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I think you're gonna love this book. It's about a silly, quirky man who comes to a small town and builds a library. And Kyle, our main character, he is gonna try and win the grand prize by escaping on the first night. The Fort is about 5 friends who discover a secret World War II bunker after a hurricane blows through their town and uncovers the entrance. And as they explore the fort, they also explore their friendships and the more serious struggles they have going on through in their own life. And they all become really close. It's a little bit of a thriller, a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of an adventure novel, and it's really fun. This is the newest book by Lois Lowry, no relation to you, Larry. She is a great celebrated author of some classics such as The Giver and Number the Stars. I really like this book because it's a beautiful story of intergenerational friendship. And what that means is there are 2 friends and our 2 main characters, they have a big age difference between them. And I really like how this book celebrates differences among friends, and it really shows you that you can become close with people who aren't necessarily like you or didn't grow up where you grew up. This book is called Leva at Last. Leva is a really fun and curious and interesting girl. She lives in kind of a fun and quirky town. It's a real mishmash of characters. And she has one burning question, and that's, what is the point of being a person? And at the end of the book, she comes up with a pretty good answer. If you like graphic novels, which I really do, these are cool because they're both based on book series that started out not as graphic novels. Whatever After is the story of 2 siblings who are sucked through a magic mirror in their basement, and they're transported to a land of fairy tales. They have a lot of really fun adventures. And Spy School is exactly what it sounds like. It's the story of a boy who is recruited to be a spy, which is maybe my dream scenario. So both of these I really like. Perfect summer reading books and great graphic novel options.
You ought to get ready for this next one because it's all about otters.
Boom, ching. Hang on, I can do that again. Boom, ching. Why do you do it? Wait, why can't I think of it? Da-doom, ching. That's it. It's a da-doom. Da-doom, ding. They're otter adorable? It's not Badoom Ching, it's Badoom Tiss. Why do you do it? Wait, that's what it was.
Got it. Yes, another animal story today, but it's also about the environment.
Otters have proven to be incredibly important to the coast of California. A new study suggests these mammals helped the ecosystems in the water they live in. And it's because they ate, and they ate, and they ate. Kelsey and I can relate to that.
No, those otters really ate. And they really love one kind of crab. It's called a striped shore crab.
This crab, 1, sounds delicious, but 2, has been destroying the salt marshes on the California coast near the city of Monterey. They chew the roots of the salt marsh grass. A salt marsh is wetlands that get flooded and drained by the tide. So while the otters were chowing down on these crabs, they were actually slowing erosion.
But get this, back in the 17 and 1800s, otters were hunted for their fur, and they almost went extinct. But now, after decades of conservation, the otter population has grown and has done wonders for certain habitats.
Want to know more about otters? They have the thickest fur, between 60,000 to 1 million hair follicles per square inch. They can stay underwater for more than 5 minutes at a time. They use tools, like a rock, to break open the shells they're eating. Plus, they love to rest in groups. A group of resting otters is called a raft. Otters will even wrap themselves in seaweed to keep from drifting away from each other.
Okay, we know you've been wanting to hear the outcome of our question of the day, which was, is a taco a sandwich?
We asked this very question over on our Instagram, and 91% of you said no! A taco is not a sandwich! Thank you! A taco is not a sandwich. It is a taco. They stay in both their lanes, and they know their places.
Well, get this, a judge in Fort Wayne, Indiana disagrees. He ruled a taco is a sandwich.
It came up when someone wanted to open a taco restaurant inside a local shopping center. A policy said, quote, only made-to-order sandwiches could be sold at the shopping center. It was a way to stop fast food restaurants from opening there.
So, to set up the restaurant, it had to prove in court that tacos are in fact sandwiches. The judge ruled in favor of the restaurant and said that made-to-order tacos and burritos were Mexican-style sandwiches.
I like tacos and I like sandwiches, and I don't understand why we just can't have both of them. A taco nurtures its ingredients between it and holds it, like almost like otters in a raft. Is chili a soup?
Yes. You have a line.
Okay. Listen, at the end of the day, call them what you will. Whether you're right or wrong, it really doesn't matter, so long as it's delicious.
Shifting gears, this isn't an ordinary car. It's an off-road solar power car.
A group of college students from the Netherlands built it and named it Stella Terra. They say it's the first car powered from the sun designed for off-road driving.
Solar energy is collected through panels on the roof, so there's no need for gas to fuel it at all.
They call themselves Solar Team Eindhoven, named after a city in the Netherlands famous for invention and technology. What's cool about their solar panels is they're 97% efficient, and most solar panels you've seen on homes are only 20% efficient. The car can reach a max of 90 miles per hour and can travel 341 miles on a sunny day. It can hold 2 passengers, and yes, that includes you. There's no age minimum for riding.
The car has been cleared for operation from the Dutch version of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
The team hopes that car manufacturers can see what they've done and are inspired to create similar energy-efficient models.
It's super cool how these students made their own car. So we want to know, what have you created? What's something you've made at home or at school that you're proud of? Is there something you've always thought about building? Send us an email to hi@firststopnews.com. And before we go, it's Memorial Day weekend.
You may have the day off, but the day is meant to honor those who have died while serving in the U.S. military.
It started all the way back in 1868, when it was originally called Decoration Day.
That's our show for today. Make sure to have a great weekend, and if you could, like and subscribe before you go. We will see you right back here at First Stop News. Did you count the number of puns in the script today?
Yeah, I felt really, really punny today. I think we might have had about, what would you say?
Well, the number is actually